Yan. Please always take note the depth of your laceration. Next. Next, please. Next slide. Yeah. The presence of canalicular damage. Next. The lid margin integrity. Next. Displacement or rounding of your canthus in the middle and the lateral section. Next. And levator function. Next slide. Evaluate extraocular movement. Find out if there is a presence of diplopia, enophthalmos, and proptosis, and hyposthesia. Next. Again, always bear into mind that there are certain imaging that are required in patients who have undergone trauma. Number one is a CT scan or an MRI, a B scan, or an ocular ultrasound. Next. Next slide. Of course, CT scan is still our primary choice in trauma because it can reveal fractures, foreign bodies, entrapments, and you can also assess the nearby structures. Next. As compared to MRI, CT scan is still superior because it has bone imaging and you can visualize foreign body and it is easier accessible. Also, if you have metallic foreign body, MRIs are contraindicated. Next. So it is important when you are asking for a CT scan that you have both the coronal and axial views in order to assess the orbit very well. Next. As well as your sagittal views. Next, please. Here's an example of a patient who had a orbital trauma with actually the windshield in his orbit. And so those glass slides are windshield glass planes. Next, please. So, ultrasonography is also being used sometimes because you can obtain fast images, real-time imaging, good resolution. It's a cheaper alternative. Although fractures cannot be assessed, it may require direct contact, which is not possible in some trauma, and may require a certain amount of skill. Next. And of course, what are the basics in the repair of ocular trauma? Number one is always to preserve vision. Number two, maintain function. And number three, always is restoring of cosmesis. Next. Okay, now let's go to the lid repair proper. In repairing adnexal eyelids, always remember to reestablish the integrity of first the anterior lamellae, which is your skin and orbicularis, the posterior lamellae, which is your tarsus, levator complex, conjunctiva, and Mueller's muscle. Next. Reestablish the integrity of your canthal tendon and canaliculi. It's always very important to find out the cross proximity between your canaliculus and your medial canthal tendon complex and their movement together. Next. So there are two flow charts in the lid repair. One is according to defect location and the other one is according to size. Let us talk about flow chart for lid defect location first. When you have a lid defect, think if it is medial or temporal. When you have a medial defect, always check if your canalicular system is normal or if there is injury on the medial canthal tendon or canalicular system. Next, please. When doing canalicular repair, there are steps that you have to always follow. So this is like the basic or steps in canalicular repair. First, identify proximal and distal end. Intubate with a silicone stent. Identify anterior posterior by repairing the anterior and posterior canaliculus with an absorbable suture, and repair the muscle and skin with another absorbable or unabsorbable suture. Next, please. Here is an example of canalicular laceration wherein the entire lid was severed and the basic steps of repair was done. This one had a bicanalicular silicone intubation. So next slide, please. Next, yeah, when you are doing canalicular repair, there are two options. You can do a bicanalicular intubation, like the slide on the right, or a monocanalicular intubation, which is more common now and easier to use, like the Mini Manaka, as seen in the left photo. Next slide. In doing cantle consideration and cantle repair, there are certain considerations that you'd like to show. Always remember this slide because it's quite important. The basic anatomy of your medial and lateral cantle shows you that the cantle tendon, lateral cantle tendon is always 2 millimeters higher than your medial cantle tendon. So that when you repair your lateral cantle tendon, use your medial cantle tendon as a reference and always insert 2 millimeters higher or more for reestablishing the integrity of that canthus. Next slide, please. So this is an example of the complex of your canthus. The medial canthal tendon has two limbs, your anterior limb and your posterior limb. The anterior limb is inserted in front of the lacrimal sac, while the posterior limb is inserted behind the lacrimal sac, since these limbs are important in squeezing the sac in drainage. The lateral canthal tendon, however, is just inserted on the lateral aspect of your periosteum at the tubercle. Next, please. So when you have lateral canthal tendon displacement, or what we call vertical displacement, we would like to do a lateral canthal tendon repair. As you can see, this patient's eye is vertically displaced, and by holding the lateral canthal area up, it improves the displacement disappears and improves the position of your lid. Next, please. So the most common and popular form of repairing your lateral canthal tendon is using the lateral tarsal strip, which uses a small tongue of tarsus and attaches it to the lateral portion of your periosteum in the lateral wall, 2 millimeters or more higher than the medial canthus. Next, please. Here is an example of a horizontal displacement wherein the medial canthal this time is the one that is completely displaced. Next, please. And what we usually do is what we call a medial canthal repair or medial canthus plication. Next slide, please. So the medial canthal plication, because you have an anterior limb and a posterior limb, will require also an anterior correction and a posterior correction. Using your tarsus as a suturing it to the tarsus, you can suture the anterior aspect of the tarsus anteriorly to the tubercle of your medial canthus in front of the lacrimal sac, and consequently the same thing can be done posteriorly, transconjunctivally, using the same tarsus and inserting it behind the behind the lacrimal sac. So that is your medial canthus plication. Next slide, please. So let us now discuss lid repair according to size of defect. So of course we have a small, medium, and large defect. When you have a small defect, that is easy. You just do direct closure. Debride well and clean well, and then direct closure. Next slide, please. So, well, that's okay. So that's a simple laceration, just requiring direct suturing and closure. Next slide, please. Another example, this is very common. This is a very common kind of laceration in upper lids, simply because the lids are loose. So when there is a laceration, you should have a V form of laceration. Also very common in dog bites. You always have this V laceration. So in repairing this, all you have to follow is make sure you debride it very well, especially if it is a dirty wound, and then suture directly. I usually use 6-O-Prolene or any non-absorbable sutures for this. Next slide, please. Next is lid margin laceration. There are times when your laceration will completely transect your eyelid margin, and closure should be properly coaptated. So next slide. So remember this photograph. This is the holy grail of lid margin repair. And I will show you why. Just remember the way the blue sutures are for the internal repair and the red suture is for out. So next slide, please. So it starts with coaptating the lid margin at the area of the gray line using a non-absorbable suture and leaving a long suture edge so that it will not hit your eye. Next, please. After suturing that, you can see that the nylon is very long, no? So you don't cut it short. After that, you will suture the tarsus in 2 places, and superior and inferior, using absorbable sutures to stabilize your eyelid. Next, please. And later on, you will close the skin and trapping the long suture from the lid margin so that it will not hit your eyes, your corneas. Next, please. So using the same principle, you see that this patient had a severe lid margin, full thickness lid margin laceration, and post-op, the lid margin coaptation looked pretty well. Thank you. Next slide, please. So let us go to medium defects. Medium defects can be a little more challenging, especially if there is plenty of lost tissue and avulsed tissue. So again, you have to find out if your medium defect is central, medial, or lateral. When you have a central defect that is at least 1/3 in size, you may do direct closure by advancement through a cantholisis on the lateral canthal tendon, or doing what we call a tensile semicircular flap if you don't want to disengage or disrupt your canthal tendon. When your laceration is in the medial or lateral aspect, a sliding tarsal flap or a Hughes transconjunctival flap may also be used. Next. This is an example of a tensile flap. So without disinserting your lateral canthal tendon, you can just use a long semicircular incision, advancing it to the other side of the defect so that you can close it directly. Next, please. See there, this is the example. So you will advance the entire skin muscle area, not much of the muscle, just a little, and then you advance it right under the ciliary line, under the lids, the lashes, and then close it accordingly. Next, please. Large defects are the most difficult to fix because you have lost more than 2/3 of your lids by then. There will be loss of, you need to repair this and make sure that not only the integrity of the lid, but also the stability of the lid is also repaired. So what can you do? You can do a cut your beard bridge flap, a modified Hughes transconjunctival flap, a Mustarde rotational cheek flap, which I rarely use, and grafts. The Hughes and the Cutler beard are the most common ones used because they utilize using tissue from the upper or lower lid to correct the defect in the up in the lid that is traumatized. So next, please. So here is an example of a defect. of an upper lid. And so what they did is that they advanced the posterior section of the lower lid into the upper lid to replace the defect, and then use the skin also of the lower lid to the upper lid to complete the defect. So this is what we call the Cutler beard procedure. Next, please. This is the opposite of Cutler beard, which is the Hughes procedure. And this is what I usually do, the modified Hughes, wherein you use the posterior lamella to fix the defect in the lower lid, and then use a graft on top for the skin. Next, please. There, as you can see, the posterior lamella is advanced to cover the tarsus and the posterior conjunctiva. Next, please. This is called the mustarded cheek flap in huge defects, especially when you have complete lower lid avulsions. So what you have to do is get a huge rotational flap from in front pre-auricular area and rotate it into that area of the lid defect. Advance it accordingly and suture the defect from the lower lid and the lateral aspect of the eye. Next, please. So, roles in debridement. This is quite important because sometimes we forget that we are actually dealing with a lot of vital structures that we should not remove. So minimize removal of tissues. Copious washing with NSS, please, not nothing else. No, NSS or BSS will work. Feel for foreign bodies embedded in the tissue. Handle the tissues carefully. Always double check the presence of foreign body in your CT scan. Always have imaging because you don't want to miss a foreign body and go back again later on. So when in doubt, do not remove. Next. I guess that's it. And then thank you very much. Next. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, May, for that extensive review and also the different techniques. No, I would like to also emphasize that when you are dealing with lacerations or anything, soft tissue traumas, most importantly is the anatomy, as May has already emphasized. The mastery of the ear anatomy, especially around the periorbital area, and also anticipation of what are going to be the different layers in the lids that will be affected in such simple or even extensive laceration. Okay, so thank you, May. Are there any questions? May, do you have any questions to the residents? If you want, you can also ask the residents here.
Well, actually, I just want them to master the anatomy because when they are in the ER and the patient comes in with a really severe laceration, there's no more anatomy. So you have to know where to put one tissue to the other. Quite important.
Okay. Okay. Also importantly, for any management of laceration is a good magnification or a good view of what you're doing. Okay.
Correct.
That's why it's very important when you are dealing with lid laceration, maski maliit siya, you have to visualize it properly with proper magnification. Okay. I think you cannot do this. Okay, residents. That you have to do your surgeries or repair with loops, okay? At least a loop, hindi naman kailangan na microscope, okay?
Right. Alam mo, maraming loops now. There's so many loops now available in the canteen, Lazada, and Shopee. So there's no more reason not to have a good one, or at least one that's functioning well.
And they're very reasonable naman.
Yeah.
Later na lang, if you want to invest in a high-end, good field, then you can, when you've already decided to go through your oculoplasty, if ever. No? Okay, Dr. Adona has a question. Go ahead, Donna.
Yeah.
Oh, nawala si Donna.
Donna nawala.
Nawala si Donna. Magka-hi pa naman ako. Wala si Donna. Baka
Donna?
naputol at
Nawala si
Okay.
naputol.
Okay. Okay, we'll just get back to her. Any questions from the audience or from the members of the department? Other, Sherman?
Ate May, how as a general rule, hanggang kailan ka pwede mag-repair? How many hours after the trauma? And then you
Well, actually, when you have trauma like that, you can repair even the next day.
Okay.
Especially if usually I get trauma that are not only the eye, they are multidisciplinary traumas, meaning to say may kasamang neuro, may kasamang ENT, may kasamang ortho. And so, and may kasamang, may mga CVA yan, So, we really wait until the patient is stable. When the patient is stable, then that's when we repair. We just make sure that the laceration is clean, we cover with antibiotics, anti-tetanus, and then repair when patient is stable. So there's no hard rule that dapat 6 hours, dapat unless of course, you have uveal prolapse, ibang kwentuhan na yon. Pero when it's eyelids per se, there's really no hard rule.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any questions?
So,
Donna in? Donna, are you in?
Nawala ulit. Siguro pag nagsasalita siya, nawawala. Sayang. No, get her back. Get her back.
Okay, yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, she's here.
okay. Donna? Okay.
yeah,
Anyway,
sir. I don't know
ayan
what's
na.
happening to the internet. Can I be heard now?
Go ahead, Donna.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, May, thank you for that very good lecture. My question is with regards to lid lacerations that have canalicular transection. Do you follow the dictum that if it is already sclerosed, you no longer try to insert, or do you disregard the time, and for as long as you can insert a tube, you still insert a tube, whether monocanalicular or bicanalicular?
Well, good, very, very good question. Kasi there are many times that you have lacerations has been there for quite a while, no? And of course, the canaliculus have already contracted, it has sclerosed, it has scarred, and it's hard already to put something in. So what I do is actually, if you really cannot intubate or you cannot put a tube, I actually try to find the distal end, the proximal end of the canaliculi, and try to marsupialize it into the conjunctiva. And I've done this very many times kasi when I go to the provinces with canalicular laceration, they've had the laceration for 1 month already or 2 months already. And yet you can actually get the proximal end when you open the laceration area. You know that area where the laceration was, when you open it, you can actually see that canaliculus. Kaso, you cannot anymore find the proximal end. There's none anymore. So we just keep it open in the conjunctival area facing the eye. And then you don't need to intubate anymore because wala ka namang distal at saka proximal end.
Okay.
Thank you, May.
There's another question by Dr. Oli. Yeah.
Hi, Doc.
Our resident here in Makati Med. Oli. Go ahead.
Hi.
Hi, Doc. May.
Oh, there you go. Hi.
Doc, when we recently attended the APAO, there have been reports, Doc, of doctors using yung butterfly, Doc.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
In placement for the stent. My
Yeah.
question is if you've used the similar technique, Doc, previously, and
Butterfly.
how did you do it, Doc?
I never, yeah.
the absence of a monocanalicular, Doc. They try to make do.
Yeah, this is the guys in Nepal. Yeah, you can use that if you want. I've never tried a butterfly, but thinking about it, it will work if you want. Kung talagang wala namang mini Manoka is actually quite expensive. So that's why I use bicanalicular all the time. Pero you can try that. It's just that you have to be careful that it stays there. There's no lock kasi. The tip of the butterfly does not have a mechanism to keep it there or to stay in your punctum. So if it lets loose, then you'll have trouble looking for it.
Thank you, Doc.
Yeah.
I'd like to also to add, no, when you are in the province, no, and you don't have any of these tubes, and you are faced with a laceration in the middle area, and you assess that both the upper and the lower canaliculi are severed, you can actually still close it primarily first, no, and advise the patient that another repair will be done. Again, the basic principle is that you have to protect that eye. So if that laceration is already exposing the eye, but you're limited, you can't say, well, you've been saying, I don't have any tube, just leave it open. No, you can actually close it first, primarily, and then refer to the oculoplastic or the tertiary hospital where there's usually an oculoplastic there for this secondary repair. Okay, so that's important for those who's going to be practicing in the province. Okay. Any more questions?
Actually, Boyet, that's a very good, note eh. Kasi that's actually one of my papers when I was a fellow. It's a one-stitch canalicular repair.
Yeah.
What we did is we just threw a 3O Prolene from the skin down to the inside the canaliculus proximal distal end, and then inside the canaliculus proximal end, then out the skin and in one stitch.
Yeah.
So that actually, you don't even need to intubate because the Prolene, because it's fat, can actually serve as your stent as it repairs, and then after 6 weeks, just take it out.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Any more? Yeah, Kaya.
Hello po, Dr.
Kaya is one of our residents here. He's actually the chief resident of the department right now. Kaya.
Oh,
Yes,
Hello.
Doc. Actually, may question po, Doc. When you have patients with lacerations in the simple lid lacerations, Doc, what's your tolerance po for using skin glue instead of suturing simple lacerations, Doc? Do you
I
have,
don't.
can you hear po?
Yeah, I can. I don't use skin glue. That's it. Basic, I always use suture. Maybe I'm just old school, but I can predict the healing better with sutures rather than skin glue. And that's why I don't use skin glue.
We don't.
Thank you, Doc.
Actually, most of our members here do not. In oculoplasty, we don't use skin glue. We usually do the suturing. The basic thing that we still do, the suturing.
I think, Doc, the parents kasi search online for alternatives. So
Yeah.
for the children, they see there's glue. They go to the ER, then they say, can we try glue first? Tapos,
Well,
Especially-
tell them
Yeah.
the basic principles of lid repair, which is, di ba? Which
Yeah.
is number one, vision, integrity, and cosmesis. So if you don't follow that three basic principles and just tapalan mo lang ng glue, then you just actually go against our basic principles of repair.
Yeah.
And doc, I think the real doctor is better than Google doctor.
Yeah. Not only, and also I'll add that most of the laceration in the lid, especially the vertical ones, they have tension.
Yeah,
Glues will not work. It will just dehisce in time. Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
Agree.
Oh, anyway, any more questions? If there are none, actually we decided to have this series of lectures for this April because we want to stress about the trauma. April is trauma month. Madami nagbabakasyon, so madami.
Ah, okay.
So we start right now for you, May, for that eyelids. The next would be orbital fracture naman. Si
Oh.
Alex Munyab naman will be the one who's
Oh,
lecturing.
that's good. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. That's cool.
Okay. So anyway, thank you. Thank you very much again, May. If there are no questions. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you also.
Yung gift namin para sa Sydney. Okay, thank you. Thank you, May.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here in Makati Med. And
Okay.
I had my first few years of being a doctor in Makati Med. So it's always wonderful to come back here.
Yeah, for your information, May here is the daughter of one of our visiting, Dr. Katipon. She's one of the pioneers of refractive surgery. If
Oh,
I'm not
matagal.
mistaken, di ba? Di ba, May? Yeah.
Yeah, tagal na yan.
Yeah, but I knew her very well and very nice
Yeah.
person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Miss her. Okay, see you. Thank you
Okay,
very much,
Thank
May.
you. Thank you, Ate May.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Boyet.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, and sir, it's your floor.
Just announcement lang, Eye Center will be open during the holidays, no, on the 9th and the 10th, from 9 to 4. So I think we have a full staff in the Eye Center, so you can still send your patients there. So thank you very much. Thank you to the service, no, Oculoplastic and Orbit service, and for everyone who attended today. Thank you very much, Dr. Boyet, and
Yeah, thank you also.
looking
Thank you.
forward to the next one.
Yeah, that's going to be on April 18, 19, yeah.
All
It's
right,
more on the
so
orbital
Yeah.
naman. Yeah.
okay, so the written exams for the boards will be on the 14th. So let us wish our examinees good luck.
And
Thanks, and see na, no? So malapit na.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good weekend.